Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Bend. My name is Debbie Boone, and I'm your host. And today I'm excited to bring to you Tom Seeko. Now, Tom is a financial advisor with the Florida Financial. Let's see, tell me exactly your name, the name of the company. I'm going to screw it.
Florida Veterinary Advisors.
Florida Veterinary. I knew there was veterinarian in there. I wanted to make sure I got it in there right. But I was going to do it backwards. So Florida Veterinary Advisors. And Tom and I met, probably on LinkedIn. And then he joined Vet Partners as a member. And so we've had an association for a while, and he brings a lot of good information to the table, talking a lot about financial stuff. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about life and how Tom ended up where he is in life. And he's also had a pretty big bend recently because they just had a baby. So that's a real big bend in the road. That'll make your life change, won't it, Tom?
Huge.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
I think this is going to be a blast. I appreciate you having me here, Debbie.
Yeah. So let's start and tell your origin story. Tell me how you got started in your profession.
I have like a very, very long one, and then I have a short one, and then I've got like a middle one. So I'll probably keep it to the middle one for everyone.
Okay, that'll work.
I growing up, I was all over the place at first of like, hey, what do I want to do? What do I want to spend my time doing? And, I grew up working at a grocery store. At first, I thought I would become like a regional manager and like become one of those people. After a few years of doing that, I was like, I don't know if that's what I want to do anymore. So then I pivoted and I was like, well, I'm going to go to college. And as I went to college, I was really big into from like 15 until maybe 20. I loved graphic design. So it was all about building websites, creating banners, logos. I used to do a lot of coding. So it was like one of those things that like it's kind of ingrained in me. Even like in one of my classes I took, we had to build a web page from scratch using Notepad. If anyone is familiar with Notepad on Windows, everything was typed in Notepad, and it was fun. So I did that for a while. And then once I went to go start college, I was looking for schools. I was like, well, I want to become a graphic designer. And once I started looking at the requirements to become a graphic designer, I was like, well, I don't even know if this is going to work out, because I know the one school I looked at was Flagler in St. Augustine, Florida.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful campus. I love that city. And they were like, yeah, we need like a portfolio of like 12 different items. And they're like very specific. And I was like, I could try to slop something together and try to be one of 60 that get into the program, or just kind of cut my losses, lick my wounds, and just figure out something else that I want to do. And I applied for a few different schools, and I got into the University of South Florida. I was right there in my backyard almost. And I decided to start off with computer science. So I was like, I like coding. When I was in high school, I took this class called Oracle, and Oracle was all about creating Java. Java, I think, is like a dying breed. I don't even think it like JavaScript, if anyone knows what that is.
I remember it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And like you miss a semicolon while you're typing the code, and it's like completely doesn't even want to work. And you're like, this is awful. And then I learned how to do what they call entity search. And I was able to like create databases and then be able to pull stuff up in the databases. It was like really a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And that's when I learned how to type like 160 words per minute, like almost 100% accurate. I'm like super fast typer. And from there, I was like, computer science. Well, semester in, I saw my buddy taking all these classes and everything else. And I'm like, this is awful. Like he was spending 10 hours a night doing like math. And I'm like, I love math, but I don't love math that much,
Mm-hmm.
not that much. So I was like, I need another direction to go here. And I was like looking at all the professions, and it was a combination between psychology or finance that I wanted to go. And I decided to land on finance because I was like, I like money, I like the economy. And I didn't really know where I was going to go with that as I went through school. I was just like, let me see how this plays out. And as time progressed, when I went to a career fair, I had either the option of becoming a personal banker at one of the big banks out there. So basically opening like checking accounts and all that other stuff, or become a financial advisor. And there's a combination, a couple different companies. One of them had the option of working with was they help teachers.
Okay.
So I was in the K through 12 market, everything from kindergarten to 12th grade. So middle, elementary, middle, and high school. And I actually got declined at Chase. Chase is the big bank that actually applied for the personal banking, one of the big banks. They didn't want me. I was like, well, you're missing out, not me. So don't worry about that. And then I was like, okay, well, the one company I decided to work with, because I was like, I don't have a market. I'm 21 years old. I don't have anyone to talk to. I've tried talking to all the people I know, and the schools gave me an opportunity to really start helping people. And during that time, I was able to grind my teeth. I was able to learn this stuff, learn the industry. I was able to learn the things I liked, the things I didn't like. And, after about almost 3 years into doing that, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, leaving by 6 to 7 o'clock, working till 8, 9 o'clock at night, trying to grind and build this business. I was like, I'm tired of being a product sales guy. Like, I just got tired of doing that. And I was trying to transition to more full comprehensive planning with people. And just the tools and the way the environment was just didn't align with who I was. And that's when I transitioned over to the firm I'm at right now. Our main firm is West Shore Financial Group. We actually have like a very solid planning process we bring people through. And then that's when I teamed up with my business partner, CJ Burnett, where we started what we have. We started working together of middle of 2014. And when I was sitting in a training class, I had no focus of where I was going to go. Like, I was like, I don't know who I'm going to work with. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was going to all these networking events, doing all these things. And I'm like, who knows what direction I'm going to fall? And when I was in a training, what happened was they gave us this list of all these professions. And they're like, these are the people that have had like a direct impact and we can help the most out of all of these, out of like all these different professions and occupations based off a lot of the services we provide and history of things that we've done. And, there's white collar professionals on there. There were different like medical professionals, and veterinarians was on the page. And out of all of them, I'm like, which one of these can I connect with the most? And I was like, well, I don't like attorneys. They're too stuffy. Accountants, a lot of them are very boring. No offense, whoever's listening to this, you're probably not a boring person, but I was just like, it's just not me. Like, I can't do that. It's not who I am. And then, so then I was like, well, I love animals. And then when I started doing some research, and it was a really good opportunity to open the conversation. And then as we started talking more around financial stuff, we realized that there's just no one really pulling things together from a bigger picture for people. There's people they met at school, there's different investment people they talk to, there's insurance agents that are out there, and they're all just getting them to do like little pieces in their finances. And I kept on hearing it time and time and time after it. And I was like, I think we have something here. I think we have an opportunity to really impact the community. Like, we could really do something big. And here we are now, 7 years later, and I'm sure almost 8 years. I'm happy to get more in conversation around that, but it's been incredible journey, and I think we're just starting.
Yeah. That's a pretty interesting curveball. So I guess your first curveball is really not getting the job at Chase to become a banker, and then moving over into what you're doing right now. So what was the challenge behind that? I mean, you're 21 years old and you're trying to figure out, what you're going to do in your life. How did you feel about that? How challenging was that to you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was probably one of the most anxious and nervous people in the world. I'm sure a lot of people can identify this with them. I think a lot of veterinarians tend to be pretty anxious about certain things too. And I remember going into it, like, every time I was like, I always felt like an imposter. I was like, I don't even know who I am or why I'm doing this. Like, why am I here? I remember when one of my interviews, they asked me, they're like, how do you keep yourself organized? And I'm like, with my brain. That was like how I answered it. The look I got from the person was like, okay. But then they wrote something out on a piece of paper, and I was just like, I think I lost that. Um, it was incredible. And then I was a very I don't know, socially awkward kind of person. So like when I just like I had a hard time being in conversations. Like it was hard for me to just carry conversations, being able to meet people. And it took me at least a good maybe year and a half, 2 years for me to really like grow out of that.
Mhm.
And the beginning part, it was really hard for me because like it was, how do I get going? Like, what do I need to do? Being able to talk to people, like just the nervousness of putting myself out there and doing things. And that first year and a half or so, it was hard. Like I was teamed up with another person, though I think it helped me because he was like complete opposite of me. He was the guy that we'd be out there just randomly talking about everything and anything, and I was like just observing and watching him most of the time. And then eventually I was just thrown into the wolves, and then I had to figure it out. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I look back and I'm just like, I think it was a pure like perseverance and just consistency of things. And like even the times that I was like incredibly uncomfortable, I was just like looking at a bigger a bigger goal that I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So
I think that's a really great point that you're making there. And you're thinking about veterinarians, particularly, and a lot of people who work in veterinary medicine, they go into it because they like animals better than people. And the social skills are not necessarily there. And maybe they are a little nervous about just having conversations. And then they get in there and they find out this is all about people. It is a
it
people
is.
business. And you're in the same boat to have somebody who's like, this is not exactly my comfort zone to go and meet strangers and have conversations. And your conversations are personal and deep because this is about how people are going to survive in their retirement and their money. Let's explore that just a little bit, Tom, because I'm really
Yeah.
fascinated. I laughingly, when I was young, when I was a child, I was very shy. And people look at me now and go, "You have got to be kidding." They don't believe it. Truth.
Yeah.
But one day I kind of had this epiphany, and the epiphany was everybody's just as nervous as I am to do
Mm.
this. And so there are very few people in the world who are just gregarious and just love to go out and glad hand people. But for most people who are a little more reticent than that, it's a learned skill. And so from that day forward, I kind of said, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it. And I'm just going to go forward and do it. And most people, if you are a good listener, consider you to be a good conversationalist.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it's also, you add that other element in there of like active listening,
Mhm.
because it's like listening and then also being able to let people know that you're hearing what they're saying versus just like repeating back the things that they are saying. And I think that's a huge thing that, we can all learn. It's not something that we all just have.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
absolutely agree with that. So was that, obviously that was kind of challenging and a little scary to think about, this was not my nature to go and do that.
yeah.
So how do you overcome fear? I guess is the question.
Uh, well, I think the biggest part where it all started off was just constantly putting myself in the environment and just making myself do it. So those times that I would try to talk myself out of it, I would push myself harder and make myself do the things that I didn't want to do. And I remember there were times like even just going back to when I first started in the business, like I literally lived at the schools. I would like a high school would start at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would be there at 6:30 trying to talk to the teachers, and then to be there all day long. I'd sit in the cafeteria during their breaks,
Oh gosh.
try to meet with people after school, and then there'd be times on their during their breaks during the day, like I would literally like stalk people in the hallway because like I need to try to get in contact with them, like I need to talk to you somehow or some form or another. And there, I was so nervous with all of those things that I was doing. I was like, this is, oh my gosh, I don't even know. Why am I doing this? Like, this is like, are they going to kick me out of here? Or what's going to go on? And I just realized over time, like if you're very genuine and you just, do your best in every circumstance that you're in there. And, I know there's this one phrase that I kept on saying myself because like, a lot of times why I would feel that fear that I had is because it was more of just like, I was too worried about what other people were going to think about me. I was too worried about how people were going to react to me. And as I started more looking at it, I'm like, it really doesn't matter about others. Like, it doesn't matter as much as it, because like what's so surprising is we tend to put so much weight on what other people think, but they're not living your life and they're not doing what you're doing. You're not the one, they're not the ones going to bed at night and putting their head on the pillow, and they're not you doing and having to live with how your day went. So, and I would look back and like, well, am I going to be very unhappy if I did or did not do this? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be unhappy if I didn't do it, because like I'm here to do this. And if I don't, but then I also had this motto that I started saying to myself all the time is I'm strong, I'm smart, and I'm confident. And I would repeat that to myself in the morning before I got in the car, before I got out of the car, as I'm about to go do something. And over time, it just, I'm sure people have heard the phrase fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
And I started becoming more of that. Like you are what you project.
Yes.
And I just started doing that. And then over time, I've morphed and molded more into that.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, I can remember most people would rather face death than a podium as a speaker, right? So
Mm.
I didn't have any formal training as a speaker when I first started, and I just got up there and just did it. But then practice, the more you do it, the better you get. And you're right. Talking to yourself is really important. And our self-talk tends to be very negative and critical, instead of lifting ourselves up, which is exactly what you were doing, saying, I am strong, I am confident, and I'm capable of doing this. And that's the way we need to speak to ourselves. I've often taught that the brain doesn't know the truth from a lie. It only knows what you tell it.
Yes.
So be very, very careful of what you're telling yourself and that story. And then the story about, what others are thinking of you. Well, I can guarantee you they don't spend an entire amount of time thinking of you at all. They are thinking of themselves and the things that they have to do in their lives. And so we're walking through life thinking that people are being very judgmental of us and what we're wearing and what our hair looks like and what we've just said and what we're doing. When the truth of the matter is, they may give you a momentary thought, but after that, they pass right on to the next thing that comes up into their lives, and it has more importance than you. And so I think we can relax. We really can relax if people are not thinking about us very much at all.
What's crazy about what you're just saying right now too is that people are having the same feelings and same thoughts that I'm having. Like there's some people that just kind of blatantly just ignore it because they know who they are, they're confident with themselves, and then a lot of other people, they feel the same way, and they hold it back. And it's such a valid point you bring there.
You just gotta realize that people are very self-involved, and it's a self-protective way that our brain works. I mean, we've got to pay attention to ourselves in order to survive. And, so that's exactly what other people are doing. So we have to pay attention to ourselves, and we do have to tell ourselves an appropriate story so that we can be successful. So Tom, thinking about this challenge and overcoming fear, and tell us a little about the decision-making process. So you left a company that you wanted to do more. You didn't like selling products. You wanted to be more comprehensive in what you were doing for people. What was the decision-making part of that? How do you process decisions in your life?
Okay. Well, I know, and to just be very raw with it, with the transition from one company to another, it really just came down to my uncertainty of income and what I was going to be making. It worried me to the fact of like my entire world was revolving around having to sell a certain product that one I didn't believe in and that I wasn't very confident in. And I was going from receiving a consistent, at least a minimal check, to now being 100% commission. And that like freaked me out. Plus I had extra expenses where I'm like, I'm not ready for this. So like really what I started exploring and looking for opportunities out there. And I've always fallen back on my decision-making is like the Franklin T-chart. The T-chart of really is like the listing of pros and cons. So you take that sheet of paper out, and on the left-hand side, you write it down, like, what are your pros? The right-hand side, you put down your cons. And like, I did that with everything. Like I would sit down and be like, okay, so what's the benefit of this? What's the benefit of this? What's the benefit? And then I write down the cons. And then I'm like, which one holds more weight to it? And, sometimes it's like, your heart says one thing and your mind says something else. And, my mind logically said, I need to do this. But then my heart is over here like, or my heart's over here like, I need change. My mind is saying this makes sense. And then the rest of me is just kind of like, I think that uncertainty of where the future is going to be. I had to just take that leap of faith. And, for a short period of time, like I moved actually, which a lot of people don't know, is I was at another company for about 3 months before I came where I'm at now. And I was promised all these great things and yada, yada. It was a huge, huge step for me to go join that other company. And I remember it took me at least a good, I don't know, 3 weeks of mulling on this. Like I had to like the pros and the cons. And then I was like, the pros outweigh the cons. And then I jumped at it. But then what happened is like, I was very clear on what I wanted to do. And after a few months of looking at where I was and what was happening, it wasn't aligning with what I was told and what I had saw that happen. So I was like, I was like, I need to get out of here. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be the same unhappy position that I was at the other place. And when I was out at an event, I did the same thing where I found the company I'm at right now. I actually met a recruiter, and I sat down and I met the guy who owns our agency. And I met him. He was like, I want you. He's like, I want you to join my team. And then I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And my wife's over here. She's like, you just made a move like 3 months ago. Like you're going to move again. And I'm just like, and then I had like that pressure on me as well. Cause it's like, my wife's over here like, gosh, are you going to get it together? What's happening here? And then like I sat and I did the whole
starting to question her decision, right, Tom?
Yeah. She's like, why did I marry this guy? Like, what is he? He's a mess. He needs to go find a job. And then basically I did the whole Franklin T chart again. And I was just like, I remember I sat down and I talked to her and I was like, babe, I really need to do this. And I was like, even though you might not be 100% behind it. And you're like, I just did this. I was like, I need to do this. And, from there, I mean, there's just a lot of decisions like, I will say from a decision-making standpoint, there are times in our lives that like, you won't have all the facts and we won't know all the information. And I think there's times like, I just get enough to feel like 70% confident with it. And then I just have to believe and take the chance. Like that's all that you can do. And if you, one thing is I always tell myself too, I'm like, what creates a lot of our fear is we worry too much about what happened in the past. What creates a lot of our anxiety is we're too busy focused on what could happen in the future. And I was just like, well, at this present moment in my life, this makes the most sense. And I will deal with it as things come at me.
Sure.
And I'll work through it. And that's, I mean, hopefully this explains a little bit more of my decision making, but
yeah, I mean, well, I think one of the things that you've said, is thinking about the things from the past and we bring that forward. And then the fear of the future or lack of control, I guess, basically there's a comfort in the routine. I think this is one of the reasons I see that people will work in jobs that they are really miserable, but they want change jobs, even though there's vast opportunities out there for them to do that, because there's the fear of the great unknown. And here I am very comfortable in this routine, but sometimes it takes a big thing to push people out of those comfort zones. And I understand that. But the other thing is people need to understand that the only thing you can control is your actions in the moment. You don't have control of the future and you can't change anything in the past. So you might as well just control what you can control today and not worry about, the past or what's happening in the future, because if you control today, then chances are good tomorrow will be a good day too, and the next day and the next day. Or if it won't, you'll deal with it, right? You'll just deal with it in the moment. I think that's maybe one of the things that I see a lot of psychological stress happening in the pandemic, and was listening to talk yesterday or reading some stuff on LinkedIn that Amy Cuddy had written. And she was talking about people feeling this loss of control because of the pandemic. But the reality is we have very little control, period. I mean, you could get hit by a bus walking out your front door. You have no control of that. So, but you don't sit around and worry about it, right? You think, oh, I can't walk outside because I'm getting hit by a bus. So if you got to go through life going, it'll be okay. I think you're in much better shape than if you're stressing about everything under the sun that could possibly happen, because it would freeze you in fear. You would never get anything done. So I'm going to ask you an interesting question. I always love to hear this from my guests. What do you consider to be your biggest career mistake?
So I don't know if it's going to be viewed like what most people would probably look at this,
Mhm.
but mine is more of a not taking chances sooner. That's like I see all these opportunities, and like as you were talking earlier, it's coming back to me again too. Is that we had the opportunity of hiring our first employee,
Mhm.
and I should have hired our first employee within the first year of working. It took 3 years to hire that person, and then it took another like 2 or 3 years before we hired the next person. And it was always just constantly being afraid and worried about, like, are we going to be able to do it? Are we going to be able to make it happen? And it's our business, and I know our growth from where we are would probably be substantially more if I had taken that leap sooner.
Mhm.
But I think that we're all here, like, and then but I always pull myself back too, Debbie. It's like, you know I don't know really what the future would be.
Mhm.
Like, I'm probably in the right place where I'm supposed to be at this moment,
Mhm.
because it happened for a reason.
Mhm.
And I've learned to accept those things. And I think going back to like what you're mentioning about control stuff, I I've really there's one thing I've adapted in my life is called stoicism. I'm sure some people have heard of it, like being a stoic, and I think people overly generalize what it really means. But it's really simplifying is understanding and identifying the things you can control versus the things you can't control, and then being able to let go of the things you can't control
Mhm.
and put more of your energy towards the things that you can control.
Mhm.
And I always am trying to learn from the things that I've done, and how do we get better. And I will say within the last year, I mean, we have two extra full-time employees now on our team. We're actually trying to hire two more people for
Mhm.
this coming year. So it's like I've already learned, and I realize I have a bigger thing that I'm trying to accomplish, that I'm like, I need to stop doubting myself,
Yeah.
and I need to start believing more and taking that leap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else from a standpoint of my career, I mean, I'm very blessed and happy with where I'm at,
Mhm.
with everything that's happened so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you do a good job for folks and that will grow your career. And I think that people feel when people are genuinely there to help them and look after them, and it's not self-serving when you're out to serve others, that then your referral network kicks in and things just start to happen. And I know, like you, it's really difficult to make these decisions where you go, okay, I'm going to go and spend so much money a month on like a social media expert, because can I post on Facebook? Yeah, I can. And did I do it for a long time? Sure, I did. But is my time better spent doing other things?
Hmm.
And the answer is yes. And does that pay off? Yeah, it does. It does. So it's just, and very much like veterinary practice owners, and I'm sure you deal with a lot of them that are, they're writing the paychecks and sending the bills out. And you're like, why are you
Hmm.
doing that? Because this is a $20 an hour job and you're a $200 an hour person. This is not smart, and you're a very smart person. So let's not do that anymore. But it's giving up the control of everything in your world to others,
It
and
is.
finding those trusted people that will do it, maybe not as well as you did, but maybe better. That's the other thing. Maybe we're a little afraid of they might do it better than I'm doing it. And I don't want them to be better than me. I can
Hmm.
remember when I when I left my first job, my first employer, I was there for 19 years, and he said, hire your replacement. And I went, no, I won't. I will do the work. I will set the interviews. I will place the ads. I will organize everything before I leave, but I will not pick the person that replaces me, because human nature says, I don't want her to be better than me. I want to be the best. and so I didn't. I did not choose my successor. I let them do that. Because you have to realize that the humanness of us says we do like to control everything, and we like for people to admire the work that we do, and we also want to make sure it's like we want it. But the
Hmm.
other people can do it better. They
They can.
absolutely can do it, yeah, and do it better.
That's something I've identified a long time ago, within like 4 years ago, a long time ago kind of thing. And we hired someone to handle some of the things that were just dragging us down, and like that our business doubled that next year
Wow.
because we're able to focus on different things. Like we hired another people this year. our business doubled in 2021.
Yeah.
So it's like, we see the levers. We actually, what's so fascinating, it's so timely to this too. We did an episode on our podcast, can you buy more time? And it was like the whole concept around that. So it's like, even if you aren't a business owner, like, are you the person that's like cutting your grass?
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense for you to be cutting your grass, or does it make more sense for you to be spending the couple of dollars and then doing the other things that are more pertinent in your life? Because like, how much is your time worth to you?
Yeah.
Even though you might not be working, but if you were working, like, how much is your rate?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Unless there is a caveat to that. Unless when you cut your grass, it gives you satisfaction. It is something that rests your mind. Yes. It's your only opportunity to get out into nature. Then by all means, go cut your grass, right?
I can't trust a lot of people to cut my grass either, because it's like, I feel like they just come very like, I don't know, not attention to detail, missing spots. I'm like, this is awful. Like,
yeah, this is my husband. He is a yard guy. I'm a plant person. I like to garden. And so my husband has this meticulous yard that doesn't have a weed in it. And of course, we're in the South, so it's not always easy to grow grass where we are. But he says, I can't trust anybody to come in here and mow my grass, because they will scalp it in spots. They will put a riding mower on it. They will make rivets in my yard. So no, I'm going to mow my own grass. But he likes his yard stuff. He likes to do it. Yeah.
That's funny.
So Tom, we met, I think probably just from a random call you might have made to me one day. I was thinking about in 2014, you said you started doing that. I thought, I bet maybe that's when I met him. But let's talk about networking, because I think that's something that's really important to both of us. And in talking to a lot of my guests, some of them embrace it, and other ones go, oh, that really, I don't like the word. It makes me feel smarmy a little bit, but it's about relationship building. So let's talk about the value you see in connecting with other people and growing your business and getting you to where you are today.
I mean, there's a lot to that. Is there anything specific you want to talk on around there?
Yeah, Debbie, just tell me, kind of like you were talking about earlier, how uncomfortable it was just to reach out like to a customer. But tell me about how you learned to just reach out to other industry partners that, maybe could send you referrals, or what you, the thought process is behind that, or how, if you've got a story about how that worked out for you. I would love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, one thing in this, I think in any relationship kind of business or any service-based business, is that you have to put yourself out there and talk to a lot of different people to really grow yourself, unless you've got a huge ad spend and you can market yourself and put your face all over billboards and Facebook ads. And there's some things I see on ads over and over and over. And I'm like, gosh, you all are spending a fortune on these advertisements. And I don't know, at first, like, what really helped from a relationship standpoint is I used to just reach out to people and not have a lot of direction on what I wanted to do. And I felt like I did, but I really didn't. And I spent a lot of time just talking with people and creating new connections. But I will tell you, the relationships really never went anywhere, because the biggest challenge that was always that I had experienced is that, like, my time is very finite. I don't have a lot of it. I already have good friends and people that I hang out with. I want to have other people that I work with and know professionally, and acquaintances. And at some point I was like, I had to make a decision to myself. I'm like, what am I really going into this relationship for? Like, what am I trying to accomplish from this? And then at the same standpoint, I was also at the same time like, is there a bigger way to, let's say, connect with them beyond just saying like, hey, yeah, oh, you have animals, oh, you have kids, you have this, you have that. But do we have a more of a mutual purpose of what we're trying to do? And I will tell you, like, since my focal point, even like just coming to the veterinary community, my vision is to become one of the predominant financial voices within the veterinary community. Like, I want people to think like, oh, who do I go to for financial guidance for business and personal? Florida Veterinary Advisors. Like, they are the people you talk to. And the only way that I could do that is like, we have to educate, we need to empower, we need to get people to the part where they are confident in their financial decisions. And I will tell you, as I reach out to all the people that I know or people that I'm still trying to meet, I always, what my intentions are is as I connect with them. I used to be afraid to call people because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what's going to happen. And I would spend time in the beginning, like, of course, I want to get to know them personally. But usually the first time you meet with someone, like, I don't want to spend like too much time just talking about personal random stuff because, like, I also am here to build a business relationship too. It's the same way that I approach a lot of our clients is like, I want to help you professionally. And then let's become friends afterwards to see if
Mhm.
this goes any further. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all here for a purpose. Like, we have a reason. And you don't need another friend right now. You need help with something specific. That's why we're here.
Mhm.
And so then, like, as I would connect with people, it's like, I want to know who you are, how'd you get started, how long you've been doing this, spend some time, small talk kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then I really talk about, okay, so like I ask a lot of questions to the people that I talk to because I want to know more about, like, okay, so what made you get started in the veterinary community? Like, how have you always worked in the position that you are? What made you choose the position that you're working in? What type of clientele do you work with? Are you meeting with people individually? Like, I'll ask them a lot of very, like, deep questions to find
Mhm.
out, like, I want to dig deep. And then I'm like, I'm always very methodic in my mind of like, what do I want to accomplish from some of these things? And then I'm like, because I want to see what their vision is and what they want to accomplish and how engaged and how motivated they are in what they do, to see if there really is any opportunity for us to really try to build something together. Because there are a lot of times, I will say, there are people out there that are just kind of, they do their job, they are here, and then it's just kind of, it is what it is. And then there are people that are like really actively out there trying to make a huge impact, a huge difference. And I always try to feel out those conversations when I'm with people, because then I know I'm like, who do I need to spend more time with? Because, like, we both have a mutual understanding of, like, we want to have this impact on the veterinary community. And I'm oversimplifying it because there's like a lot of things that we want to do in our side of things. And then, like, as we have conversations, and then I'm like, usually those people that I have met, I'll keep in contact with them periodically, but the ones that really, that I've been able to find more intel around, like more information, then I'll try to spend more time with them.
Mhm.
And it'll be connecting with outside of things, talking about how do we do things together. And I think as of lately, as I get more into more of my business, Debbie, is that my time is becoming even more and more limited. I have 15 to 20 client meetings a week. I have 3 full-time staff. I have a business partner. We're trying to bring other advisors on our team. And it's like, I want to meet with people and I want to create relationships, but at the same time, like, I need to see I got to squeeze as much juice out of that conversation as I can.
Mhm.
And then I want to create more practical action steps from that meeting versus just saying, like, hey, I'm here. Maybe we can do these things. I'm like, no, what could be a real simple next step that we can just do something together.
Mhm.
If this really is meaningful to you, let's do something.
Yeah.
Or if it's like, hey, connect, do you have other people they can connect me with? Maybe there's
Mhm.
other people that, like, you should meet. So I try to be super intentional with my conversations. When I first started, it was like, I don't know, talk to anyone, everyone. I'm like, I got time. Yeah. Like, you want to talk for 3 hours? I'm here. And I'm like, I got 15 minutes. I got to go now. Like, what
Right.
do we got? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not to be
Yeah.
rude, but it's just like, that's
Well,
just how it is.
it is how it is. And this morning, we had a meeting with our new administrator for our association. And when we got through, she said, "Wow, this has been a really productive meeting. We've gotten a lot, everything on my list accomplished." And I said, "Well, you're here with 2 people who don't have a lot of time, and this is volunteers, and we get stuff done. So this is what we're doing here: is we are getting stuff done." And so it is about intention. And you're exactly right. When I would go and speak or go and do different kind of meetings or agree to do things, there was always the intention behind it that this was, getting my name out, exposing what I do and what I talk about to an audience that in the future would have opportunity to take advantage of the knowledge that I have and
Mhm.
utilize that. And the same thing for, my clients. I like to have a stable of people that I feel comfortable and confident in their integrity, first of all, and their ethics. So that when I say, you know what, you need to meet this person. This is the financial advisor. You need to meet this person, the CPA. You need to meet this person, the attorney. And I have
Yes.
great confidence that they'll be well taken care of. And then I'm just kind of, my hands are off and I'm done. but I would never want to refer to someone that ended up being kind of a shady character, right? So we do have to, I think,
Absolutely.
screen carefully the people that we are intentional with sharing business and referrals back and forth. And, what is that old saying? You are the composite of the 10 people that you spend the most time with. And
It's
so
actually, it's
yeah.
actually 5.
Is it 5? Yeah.
It's the 5 closest people you spend the most time with. You're going to become some kind of like blend of all of them.
Blend of all those people. So make sure you choose wisely.
Yes.
Those 5. Exactly.
It's kind of like, I'm almost like with my wife, I've been with her now for 14 years, and I feel like we're like 85% similar now. It's kind of weird because like we complete each other's sentences and we act very similar. I'm like, wow, like it's just really incredible when you spend a lot of time with people, how you do tend to take a lot of their quirks and who they are. And
exactly. Well, my husband and I have been together 48 years. Wow. So just wait.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you think about that, because we were really funny the other night. We'd done some traveling and we came back home and we went, gosh, we don't want to do this. And we don't want to do that. We don't want that. And we're both agreeing that we don't want to do the things that most people think are fun. Like New Year's Eve. We hate New Year's Eve. It's just so cheesy, and we might go out to dinner, but we don't think we have to be forced to go to some event that nobody really has any fun at, right? We just think we do. And so we said, we're just not going to do that. But we both have become so similar in our thought patterns that nobody else can stand us. We just like ourselves.
Yeah.
We're good company to each other.
There's nothing wrong with that either, because it's like, at the end of the day, like going back to even what we were talking about earlier in the conversation, is like, nobody cares as much as you really think that they care. I mean, there are people you have that do, but it's like, those relationships that you're closest with are the ones that matter the most, because you spend time with them. Your life is going to unravel with them. Like those are the ones that you should spend a lot of time concentrating on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So I do want to talk just a little bit about financial advice. And typically I don't go off on subject matter experts, but this is too much, too good to miss. So one of the things that I think is important in financial planning for people is something that you've touched on. Is I'm going to have a conversation with people and I'm going to listen to what's important to them. Mm-hmm. And when people are making financial planning decisions for their lives, how do you steer them towards, or help them when they're saying, here's what's important to me? What comes to mind is one of my friends, the financial advisor, says, you immediately need to quit spending $20,000 a year or you're going to die penniless. He said, well, too bad, because my wife and I are going on our 50th wedding anniversary to Rome. Figure it out. So obviously there was 2 very disparative comments there about what was going to happen with the money and the financial advice. So do you run into that sometimes in your work?
So I'm actually going to make this even simpler than this, because I honestly, from being in the business now for 10 years, the direction and the advice that most people receive is very transactional and tends to be very linear. Like it's not very dynamic from how they plan with people. So, and let me give some context to that. Investing. Everyone wants to invest. Everyone wants to know, like, I need to work with an advisor once I have money to invest. Wrong. You shouldn't be working with an advisor once you have money to invest. Money, it's one of those things. Investing is a good thing to do, but it's really truly understanding what you want to accomplish from all of that. And what I mean by this is, like, the simplest form that I can put this is, we all want to have the ability to not have to work for a paycheck every day. So imagine you wake up and you're like, I'm not to work tomorrow. I can choose to go to work or not. Like, I want to go to work because I want to. I don't have to be there anymore. And the way people make decisions and the way that they plan do not align with that. We tend to live in a society that tends to see the next shiny object, to where, for instance, today there's all this whole thing with online stuff and different currencies and things you can buy, and
Bitcoin,
NFTs just started getting popped up. These are in all honesty with all of this, like, these are all fads. There are going to be people that get rich out of it. There are
Mhm.
going to be a lot of people who lose their shirts in a lot of this.
Mhm.
And that's just how society and how life has always gone.
It's kind of like the beanie babies of finance, right? So
To a certain
here's,
degree, like, I
yeah.
mean, I personally can't even deal with cryptocurrencies.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's not a regulated thing. Like, it's
Mhm.
just something I can't deal with it. My licensing completely restricts me even talking about it at times because it's
Mhm.
just, but besides the fact of it all, it's like, how are you aligning all of your decision making to provide you the ability to not have to work for a paycheck forever? And that could be once I get to 65 years old and I want to retire.
Mhm.
It could be by the time I reach the age of 50. It could be 45. And what are the habits that you're creating and the behaviors that you're designing in your life to make really good decisions?
Mhm.
So it's like that house you can go buy. Are you being too extreme? Does it fit within your decisions of the ability to stop working?
Mhm.
You want to go on that vacation, you want to go out to eat, Amazon, that one click to buy kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
how does all of this fit together? And really, I hate to say this, but I'm going to kind of say this because I see it time and time again. Sometimes I don't believe people really truly know what they want. Like, they think
Yeah.
they know what they want, but
Mhm.
they really don't. Like, their reasons for planning and what they're trying to accomplish, they're kind of like, they're surface level. They're not very thought out. And there are people, I will tell you, that we talk to that are super, like, they know what they want.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you spent a lot of time thinking about this.
Mhm.
And then there's other people, like, I have deer in the headlights at times, where people, they look at me and they're like, I don't, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, let's dream. Let's dream about what you want to
Yeah.
accomplish. And I think the whole planning perspective, especially even with your friend, it's just, if it's fitting into the ability that they can be able to retire and be able to do the things that they want to do, more have at it. But I will tell you what's also where there's a big fault in our system here, and not to go too far in depth on
Mhm.
this, but I'm happy to if you like, is what they call the interest only retirement plan. So people, they get into retiring, and this is where a lot of advisors concentrate on, is they
Mhm.
say, well, you've saved up all this money throughout your entire career. Okay, so now we got to produce some kind of income for you. Like, how are you going to get a monthly check? Like, you need money. So by default, the old school way of thinking of it is, I put my money into dividend producing stocks. So I'm going to get some dividends from it. Maybe I put some money in other stuff and I get some interest off of those things as well. The problem is imagine that you wake up every day tomorrow and that your paycheck is reliant on whether the stock market is up or down. So people are going into retirement already with the mindset, and it's incredible. When I was talking to someone the other day, they're like, "Yeah, have less income in retirement," and I'm like, "Why is that even a plan of yours? Why is that a goal of yours?" And they're just like, "Well, that's what I've been told. That's what other people do." And I'm like, "Well, if you think that way and that's what you want to accomplish, then yeah, sure, we can make that happen for you if you want." But then it's like, well, if you really are trying to focus in on, like, hey, I want to be able to get as much income as possible. It really falls in, there's very simple things. It's, how much money am I saving? If I'm saving at least 20% of my income, usually that's the spot everyone should be at,
Mhm.
20%. Otherwise, you're relying too much on other things of trying to earn interest on and everything else. And then also having on the backside of it all, how are you going to spend your money? And how do you spend it? By taking out the risks, different risks of the economy, taxes, adding more guarantees to your life, creating a baseline of income you're going to receive all the time. It's like, think of it like Social Security is something like, I don't know what it's going to be like for me in the future. It's going to be some kind of decrepit form of what it is today, I would imagine.
It's really funny. I will tell you this, that when I was your age, we all just assumed that we would never get it. I mean, that was just kind of the
Well, it's
way
here.
but it's still here, right? So we're just saying, okay, is it still going to be here? I don't know if it's going to be here or not, but we can't plan our future based on that. And I think that's, looking back at my career as a manager, and we did have pension and profit sharing plans in my first hospital. And it would just kill me that the first thing that would happen when somebody would leave our hospital would be they would cash out that plan, because they were 25 years old. And I thought, if you just leave it there until you're 65, it's going to be so much more money. I can remember my boss, I was 29 years old, and he brought me into the office, and I was a new manager, and he said, "I'm going to show you something." And he showed me this little piece of paper, and it was the value of compound interest. And he talked about just putting money in savings, like when you were young, and not touching it, and the value of compounding it for the rest of your life, and how much you would have when you retired. And it really was a lesson that stuck with me. But I think that people, especially a lot of the young people, maybe our technicians, receptionists, that they have not learned financial, and I don't want to say it's financial planning, but they haven't learned money. They haven't learned how money works. And that's a really important lesson that I think we need to get out into our community. We have a lot of people who are, technically living paycheck to paycheck, but then you go, are you really? Or is it the decisions that you're making on spending that paycheck sometimes making your life harder? How are you spending your money? How is your money working for you? There's rules that money follows, and we don't know the rules.
What's so interesting about that too, even I would just look at society as a whole, veterinarians, not veterinarians, just a lot of people have a mentality of shiny new object. They're doing it, I should do it. I don't need this because someone told me I don't need it. And like, people make decisions based off of what other people are telling them versus actually looking at the circumstances that they're in and what they want to accomplish in their life. And their plans tend to be an accidental result of a multitude of many different decisions that they make. So like, if they don't plan, their life is going to be planned for them in some form or fashion. You have a plan, and your plan is no plan. And your plan should be a plan for you. So it's like, from a planning standpoint, it's just, there's so much that I can unpack in this conversation. And like, I think our industry is changing as a whole. I think from a transparency standpoint, but I think from a planning perspective, what is being promoted and what's being shown out there is more of, it's just like they're trying to promote designations, they're trying to promote certain things, but realistically, are they doing really good for people? Or is it still the old antiquated thought process that was done before and nothing's changed? What's so funny about this too, and the last thing I'll end on this, is that from a financial planning standpoint, back in the 1970s is when the CFP designation was introduced. People went from having employer pensions to now the 401k started, to where now people have to save on their own. 401k is an entire animal in itself that some people should and should not be doing. And that's a whole, that's a whole nother conversation. The CFP was introduced, and there's about 4% of people that could actually sustain their lifestyle without any assistance from anything else. Fast forward 20 years later, 30 years later, the statistic is still 4%. It has not changed. And it's because what hasn't been addressed is the behaviors and the decision-making process that people have when it comes to money. And until that gets addressed, we're always going to have people taking absurd amounts of debt. When I go to buy a house, the mortgage person said I can get 35% of my income in a mortgage. I should be able to afford it.
So let me just max it out. Right. And that, I think that, of course, that is exactly what happened during 2007. We saw this market ramping up with false values on these homes, and the ridiculous mortgages that people were having, and then eventually it always hits the fan, and what goes up comes down. And I think we're getting into that a little bit in housing market right now. I could sell my house for a ridiculous amount more than I paid for it just 15 years ago, because I live on water and I live at the ocean, and you're just going, really? People are selling houses and people are buying houses.
You know what's crazy about that too right now, Debbie? Is that people are even putting extra cash on top of the houses.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. It is just, you just look back and it's like this shark feeding frenzy of people throwing money at things. You're like, why are you doing this? This makes no sense. And, I can remember when I was young, and I already told you how long I've been married. So, it's been a while. We were taught home economics in school, and you learned how to balance your checkbook, and you learned how to put money in savings, and you learned how to budget your household. And now we're very computer driven, and we're learning a lot of tech, but we're not learning how to live. People who are having to pay people to hem a pair of pants and sew on a button. That's insane to me. I can sew a dress. I can make a suit. Why in the world are you paying $10 for somebody to sew on a button for you? And those are the kind of decisions, little bitty bits of money are piddled away every day in our lives if we don't pay attention to it. I think about, the Starbucks run every morning for $4. Well, or the cigarettes. I mean, I don't smoke, but looking now, I think cigarettes are close to $10 a pack. How many of those do you smoke? And where are all these little bits of money that you don't know are drifting away from you that could be working for you in your life? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things too. I mean, if that's something you want to do and that's something you want to incorporate in your life, just make sure you have things within balance. I mean, personally, I'm just to be completely vulnerable here. I have a car addiction. I love cars. Like I've already built it into my plan though, where I can have a brand new car like every couple of years, but I'm also saving 30% of my income.
Yeah.
So it's like I have a permission slip to do it. But if you're not saving and you're not doing those things, then maybe you should reconsider what you do. So
yeah, exactly. Well, you'll have to talk to my husband. He's a car guy.
Yeah. I'm actually in the process of trying to get another car right now. I want to upgrade to the ultra luxury. I was like, ooh, it's really, yeah. My wife already knows about it, so we're on good terms about it.
You're all good. It's all good. All right, it's all good. So let's talk a little about advice. Like, obviously, we were talking about some financial advice, but seriously, just looking at the big picture here, there's a lot of people with student loan debts. There's a lot of people with, making career decisions. What career advice would you give to someone who is, just starting out or thinking about making a change?
Well, first part is I'd say make sure you get a budget. I like to call it a spending plan. Getting a clear vision of where your money is going. First off, too, I ask so many people like, how much money do you make? And they look at me sometimes and they're like, I don't know, just goes to my bank account. My wife does that to me all the time. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me here. Like, I'm like, you work and then you get paychecks deposit. And you have no idea how much money you're making. So first is understand like, what is your budget? I like to refer to it as a spending plan, like because a budget is very restricting. So if you're very bad with your money, you should probably create like restrictions on yourself. Spending plan is more dynamic, basically just paying attention to your spending throughout the month and being able to adjust. So you can be able to change categories along the way. So that's one place to start. If you're looking at loans, the other thing here is finding a realistic understanding of what is required for me to pay off my loans in the time periods that I want to pay them off. So if it's 25 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, like what amount of money per month do I need to allocate towards that? Like, what do I need to pay? And then being very cautious in the terms of that, like with repayment of saying, okay, well, if I want to repay and I want to get on loans, and like refinancing is a huge thing today too, making you understand the difference between private and public loans, because there are advantages to public loans, such as forgiveness. So at some time, hopefully your loans will be forgiven. You got forbearance. So if you come into a financial hardship, you can pause your payments for a while. And also at the same time, there's income repayment. So they can base it off of your loan to income ratio. When you go to private loan, you get rid of all of that. You're on the hook. You got to pay it every single month. I always like to lean more on the caution of like, get the lowest payment possible and then get on a term of how you want to repay it and just pay that extra amount of money. So if life does kind of throw a curveball at you, you can adjust. It's like getting a 30-year mortgage versus a 15. I always suggest people get a 30 and just pay it like a 15 if you want. Then you're not committing to something where you can't back out of. And then the last thing I would just say, really simple, is make sure you get on a savings plan. And when I say a savings plan, it's not just putting money in a 401k. Savings plan means I have enough money that I've built up that's accessible, that I can be able to touch for emergencies and other different things. And then on the other flip side is actually have a consistent amount that I'm saving for my plan in the future. What we usually do is we'll say create a wealth coordination account. We're happy to talk about like if we can help do something like that for you. But the idea is that there's an account that's designated that I save into, so then that money is in a hub to where then I can redistribute it to different buckets, different things that I want to put money into. So save consistently. And I would always suggest if you were going to do it on your own, open that account somewhere else. Don't open another savings account at your bank. Your savings account at your bank should be your emergency fund. That is the money that like I have like 3 months of expenses built up. That is my cash. The other
Yeah.
part,
The
all
dog
of
gets
that.
hit by a car. There's your
Yes.
money. Yeah.
Yes. So like being in the basic form of life is, budget, understand a realistic time frame to pay off debt, and just get in saving, like what we like to call it a world-class saver. Get the 20% of your income in savings. And once you're out of school, hopefully it should be a lot easier for you versus being 5 years out and being married and having a house and kids and all this other stuff. It becomes a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. It
So
definitely does.
yeah.
Well, Tom, this is really cool, and I'm sure that we could talk about this for a long time, but I value your time. But let's end up with, tell me, you got any final words of wisdom? Tell us a fun fact about you. And I already disclosed that you're a car guy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a secret talent? Do you have a favorite book? What would you like to share that we didn't touch on?
I'm a huge soccer fan. I grew up playing soccer. I was played defense all the way to offense. I love playing midfield was my favorite position. But now these days, I'm not playing much soccer. I'm watching more of it than anything. And I love the English Premier League out of the United Kingdom. So every Saturday and Sunday, I've got the games on. And my favorite team is Liverpool. Liverpool has been like, I've been cheering for them now for at least 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
I bought my daughter a little onesie, a little Liverpool onesie jersey. So now we cheer on together. She loves soccer
Right.
already. She's 6 months old. It's so
Oh,
great.
oh, I'm sure she loves soccer already.
Yeah, she better love soccer.
She's gonna have to absorb
Yeah.
soccer. Yeah.
But one thing is that I'm actually another cool thing. I'm planning to sign up to start getting my pilot license. So that's another thing just to add in here. Like I want to become just more of a sport plane pilot, so I can be able to fly, and so it's on my radar. So it's something neat about me that some people I've been wanting to do it. I'm going to push myself to do it soon. Something out of my comfort zone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, when
So,
I was in high school, I used to take aerospace engineering. I was the only girl in the class, and it was taught by a retired Air Force Colonel Clausen. I still remember him. And we got to go up in just a little small private plane, and it was a blast. I always thought I would love to get my pilot's license, but honestly, I have been on so many airplanes that I'm good with letting the pros do it. Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Anything else you would like to say about yourself or your company, or do you have a favorite book that has meant a lot to you that you would share? We always like to add it to our book list.
Well, there's actually three things that are just popping right in my head. One is we have a podcast as well. It's called the Smarter Vet Financial Podcast. If anyone wants to take a listen, we talk about business finance, we talk about personal, we have interviews with people, with veterinarians, professionals. You've been on the show too yourself. So, and also at the same time, if anyone were interested, want to talk, we do work with people outside the veterinary community, but we have a no cost, no obligation first time call with people, really just designed to help from the standpoint of what are you doing? What do you want to accomplish? How do we help you? And then talk about more of our planning processes and things that we can help accomplish. So you can always just go to our website, go to our contact page, and just reach out to us if you want to talk. But really the last thing is there's one book that has actually revolutionized my life, and it's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's 4DX for short. And really what it's helped me be able to visualize and really understand how do I, like when we talk about things that we can control. And when we looked at our whole team, even myself personally, in my own personal life, from a business standpoint, how do you know what you need to be doing every day to achieve the things that you want to be accomplishing? And what it really breaks it down to is helping you understand what is your wildly important goal. It's called a WIG. Actually, we have WIG meetings with our entire team every Thursday, and I wear a wig. Okay. So it's kind of, make it fun. And we define what is our wildly important goal. And then also from there, you start creating out battles. Like what are the battles that we need to fight underneath that WIG to accomplish that? So then you have these battles, which then you can assign to different people, or if there are things that you're just doing yourself. And then you create what we call lead and lag measures. And the book, it helps define lag measures are things like, I want to reach $1 million in revenue by the end of the year. A lead measure could be I need to contact 5 new people a day in order to accomplish that. So really being able to dial in on what is going to help get and win that battle. So I understand the lag versus the lead. Then you create a scoreboard. So understanding how do I track myself to make sure I'm accomplishing the things I need to do, where I think a lot of people fall short is because they don't know what they've done and they just assume that they've done something. But then when you really track your activity, most people are very underwhelmed by what they really did.
Right.
And then every week or every day, there is a cadence of accountability. So like basically we have, like going back with the WIG meetings I'd mentioned, all 3 people on our team, we get together and we have meetings around their WIG. How did they do? What are some of the struggles they had? Look at their scoreboard. And I operate our business that way. I operate my personal life that way. And it just really helps me understand, like when I feel so lost, it's like, okay, I want to accomplish this. So what do I really, what can I control? What should I focus on to achieve the things that I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think you just like with the pilot license.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get my pilot license. It's a lag measure. Well, the lead measures that I have is, well, I need to schedule my first appointment and start flying. Like that's really like, I need to get the materials and I need to start flying. And then I need at least, like, if I want to accomplish it in like 60 days or 60 months, I got to go flying every single week for an hour in order to accomplish that. So I know like my lag is my license, but then I need to do this on a consistent basis to get there. So it's a simple one, but there's some of them that I've seen there we have are very complex.
So I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about goal setting. I mean, we really need to know what our goals are and then sort of divide up what it's going to take to reach those goals. Because I think a lot of people just, they say, okay, one day I want to do this, but they don't make any plan to reach that point or to set out for that goal to be accomplished.
Right.
And keeping things in front of you, I think, is important also. What are those goals going to be? And accountability is huge. And so when you're having these meetings and you're going back and you're kind of revamping your week and saying, how did you do and what were your struggles? You really are putting in accountability measures that say, okay, here's where I struggled, here's where I need work. And we certainly could do that in our veterinary practices or any of our businesses to say, let's look at what worked. Let's look at what didn't. Let's look at, get some ideas about how to make it better. Let's talk to the people who do it well and get some feedback from them and some training from them. And then let's go out and do it better and measure it again and see how we did. It's not enough to just go through your days. You got to have some clue about where you're going. We need a roadmap. Several years ago, AHA asked me to speak at the Connexity conference, and I brought in 36 toy bow and arrows. And nice. I put targets all up around the room, and I gave 36 people these rubber bow and arrows, and they said, okay, shoot at something. And they all picked different things, whatever was close to them. And I said, so here's what happens if you don't tell your team what your goals are. Exactly. They just randomly pick stuff, and arrows were flying all over the room, and it made the cover of the Journal of American Veterinary Medicine with like all the what were these people doing in this room? And I went, goal setting. They were trying to find a target to aim, but nobody told them what it was.
That's so great.
Yeah,
I love it. Such a cool idea.
Yeah. So Tom, thank you again. I knew it was going to be a good conversation. I really appreciate your time, and when you get that pilot's license, let me know. There's some places I want to go, and and hopefully I'll see you soon at the Vet Partners annual meeting. And I'm sure that we're going to put all this information about how to get in contact with you and Florida Veterinary Advisors in the show notes. So if people have any questions, they can certainly take advantage of that free 1 hour of consultation time that you give to help them sort out a little bit about their financial planning and hopefully make the profession a better place to not only work through, but retire from when they get ready to do that.
You got it.
All right.